was the night you were made for. Burn like a fire. This is the night that you were made for. Don't close your eyes. Safer to stare into the sun than to turn away from what you could be. The time has come to stand and fight. Deconstruct, reignite. Safer to stare into the sun than to turn away from what you could be. I'm taking my pain away, nothing else more to say. Everything that I have, I'll give. First, you gotta pick a side.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to coverage of the LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series. Live tonight from Phoenix International Raceway in Avondale, Arizona. I am James Pike alongside Evan Pashoko and Justin Prince in the booth, with Cisco Scaramuza punching the buttons in our virtual production trailer up top this evening. And Justin, I turn to you first because part of the street stocks being in this LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series is to bring a bit of a throwback feel to all the racing that we have here. And this track, even though you might not necessarily think of it as a throwback, it should be noted that we are at the 2008 scan of what was then Phoenix International Raceway. We are not at the current scan of Phoenix. This is the original one that was brought into iRacing when the sim was first getting its legs. So you look back on it now, and especially when you consider that we've had a configuration in between the real-life version of Phoenix, the version of Phoenix that we're going to be running tonight. And this really does sort of throw the clock back a bit. This shares more in common with the version of Phoenix that Alan Kawicki used to see and Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon did than it does the current stars in NASCAR do.
Absolutely, and these drivers have been having a lot of fun in terms of preparation for this race tonight, whether it's been the practice races or whether it's been just testing around the racetrack tonight, since it's the hottest conditions these competitors have seen all throughout the week in these street stocks. We had some great fun the last time the drivers were in these machines last time. Now tonight, they're going to have to deal with a track that is different compared to real life, which has a lot less grip and, at the time, was a very aging track surface.
An old track surface, a bumpy track surface, a lot like what we've seen with some of these older scans at iRacing, Evan Pashoko, and no doubt that it's going to be a challenge. The car never really plants itself in a corner, and you really have to manage the throttle, even in these street stocks where it's more of a momentum-based race car, but you have to be careful about how you get back into the throttle on corner exit, which is always the case at Phoenix, but I think especially true with this oldest version available on iRacing.
Yeah, it is. It's a really fun race. We're looking forward to it in these cars, obviously. It's going to be a very different challenge than the last time we saw these things on a racetrack at Myrtle Beach that was just a bit over a half mile. Tonight, we're going to go racing for 80 laps around this 2008 version of PIR. Unlimited use of pit lane as well, so drivers can be in and out as much as they would like tonight. And it is a custom fixed setup, slightly modified with a modified fuel as well, compared to the base iRacing fixed amount and that one quick repair. And it's funny because we think of these street stocks, James, we think of them racing at places like Myrtle Beach, but honestly, one of the favorite pastimes I think for majority of the field out there tonight when they're on iRacing and they're not on Fox or these big networks is driving street stocks at tracks small to big and everything in between. So they've got a lot of seat time in these things, but fun to be back at a racetrack that we haven't seen on a broadcast side in several years.
But one of the cooler parts, I think, of this replacements iRacing series is we take a look at where we are in the world. We're still at Avondale, Arizona. This is still the Phoenix International Raceway that you know and love, just a little bit flatter and maybe not necessarily as quick. The banking in turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 as we knew them, still the same, but the dog leg is the most significant difference, a little bit forward compared to where it is nowadays, Justin Prince, and definitely flatter. It functions more like a true dog leg and less like a tri-oval than the current configuration does.
Indeed, and a lot of these drivers had some fair amount of challenges during whether it's the qualifying runs to set the fastest times they can, or whether it was in that practice session before the qualifying tonight. Lots of drivers talked about having to be more patient on the throttle here. As mentioned, not as a lot of grip compared to the new Phoenix configurations where you have the open dog leg, but it's a track that these competitors were looking forward to because it's a fun track, and they're ready to have fun when the green flag flies tonight.
As we take a look at our LeafFilter gutter protection replacements iRacing Series starting grid for this, the fourth race of the series, Phoenix International Raceway. It is Kevin Iannarelli who will start on pole with a time of 32.217 seconds over Ty Majeski. Colby Presley begins from the third spot this evening. Fourth will be Josh Berry, who won the race at Kansas. Justin Haley rolls off from the fifth spot. Sixth will be Ryan Trex. Jonathan Davis will start from seventh. Eighth will be Landon Castle. Kevin Hamlin rolls off for the ninth spot. And 10th, Justin Prince is your winner of the replacements 100 from Atlanta Motor Speedway, Josh Williams.
Anthony O'Frail starts in 11th spot tonight with Justin Allgaier alongside him. Then behind him, making his debut in the replacement series, it is one-time Cup Series champion MTJ Martin Truex Jr. alongside one of the fastest cars in practice, Taylor Gray. Ryan Flores starts in 15th tonight alongside Harrison Burton with Bobby Labonte and Ross Chastain in 17th and 18th. Rounding out the top 10, 20 starting spots, Tyler Overstreet, Jordan Erickson, Evan.
And sticking with those first-timers, how about Steve Myers? He'll be piloting the Papyrus race at entry tonight, starting 21st alongside Elliott Sadler in 22nd. Drew Herring and Kevin Harvick going to double up for the next duo in 23rd and 24th. They'll be accompanied by the Rowdy Energy Toyota behind of Cup Series champion Kyle Busch, alongside with Mike Clay, Regan Smith, Todd Gilliland, 27 and 28. And back on row 15, you'll find Roddy Capson, 29th, and Chris Rice, P30.
Jack can now start from the 31st spot. 32nd will be Dave Vincent. Parker Kligerman, owner of Burton Kligerman Esports in part, along with Jeff Burton, will roll off from 33rd. 34th will be Garrett Smithley. Dale Earnhardt Jr. begins tonight from 35th. 36th will be TJ Majors. Kyle Long starts 37th. 38th, AJ McCarron. Boris Cook, who won last time out at Talladega, starts 39th. 40th, Tim Duckert, Tim Clausen, and Brent Wentz complete your 42-car field tonight at Phoenix. As we take a look at the track facts, this is Phoenix International Raceway, the 2008 configuration of the track, which is a mile in length, 1.609 kilometers around. It opened in 1969. NASCAR made its first visit here in 1988. Alan Kawicki was the winner. 11 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2, 8 degrees of banking in 3 and 4, just about flat everywhere else. In sim, we race on the default day, iRacing Day, May 15, 2020, just around, call it maybe 2:30 local time. We'll go for 80 laps, just about 160 miles, just over 250 kilometers, and it's a hot one. 86 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 127 degrees track temp, winds to the north at 2 miles an hour, humidity of 55%, so it will be slick. Drivers will have 3 Nutrient Ag Solutions fast repairs to work with. one of those rather, and 3 green-white checker attempts as we go racing from Phoenix in the LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series. And Iannarelli will lead the field into 1 and 2 for the first time, and you can already see these cars wiggling, fighting for grip as Majeski will try and draw even with the 27, and Coleman Presley and Josh Berry will fight for second.
And it was seen in practice as well as in their test races throughout the week, James, that there was a lot of side-by-side fighting to be expected tonight, especially on these short runs. We're seeing that example right now with everybody already shuffling, but you want to be on the bottom line because by the time you get to the start and finish line, it's about a car length advantage you get the whole way around the bottom.
Just about as Coleman Presley gets a little bit loose on the inside, and the rear end's already stepping out. It is just a struggle, and in fairness, Evan, it's not like the street stock has all that much grip to begin with. You've got a bit of a front valence there, and some air escapes underneath the nose, and makes it pretty much impossible for these things to stick down to the bottom. But that's part of both the challenge and the fun of driving this street stock. Everybody who has been a part of iRacing in some way, shape, or form knows this car. It's the first oval car that you get the chance to wheel when you first sign up to the service. And even now, if you're one of these top drivers, they love it because you have to slide around and really wrestle the thing around the racetrack to get the most out of it.
And it is kind of funny in this race as they head off and down into turn 3. These cars getting up close to 130, 140 miles an hour on some of those hot laps. As you can see, that 73 of Josh Berry is sliding on the bumper of the 27 of Iannarelli, but they feel so much slower than that 100 to 130 mile an hour range that they're actually racing in, as the 27 stays clear up front. And it is kind of the appeal of these cars, but you'll see those ones on the bottom push it up all night long, keeping them held down low. Going to be critical looking off of the back of your race leader. That 27's not getting away, and Berry going to give him a shove down into 3.
The fact that these cars can slide up and get tight, especially when you're underneath someone on the bottom, Justin Prince, I think is going to make the exits out of turns 2 and 4 in particular very imperative, because they do funnel up. I don't think it happens near as much as it does with the new configurations, but 2 and 4 have been notoriously treacherous because it does get a little bit tight on corner exit. And then when you consider how easy it is to spin yourself out if you get back into the throttle too quickly, it's going to be something you have to watch as Josh Berry takes over the race lead from Kevin Iannarelli, and Coleman Presley follows suit.
Yeah, but Presley's got the bottom. Bit of a squeeze, though, from Berry. And that time, when you get on the throttle, going to be very critical as this race continues tonight, as you talked about, because if you're able to get into the gas just a bit earlier than some of your competitors and time it up just right, you're able to get that good run that we've seen from Berry. If you end up getting too late on the gas, there's a chance you get freight trained by all this traffic starting to build up side by side, a majority of the pack still.
Case in point, Kevin Iannarelli, who started on pole and is already back in the 5th spot, and may well give up that position to Ryan Truex, who's underneath him in that number 40 street shock. So Iannarelli having a tough time on the outside. Meanwhile, Presley waiting for his opportunity to shuffle around Josh Berry to get to the race lead. But the first real battles here as Iannarelli gets back down in line. Jonathan Davis, Landon Castle, Evan racing for 7th and 8th down the dogwood.
In Castle currently in the spot that, we saw the 27 of Iannarelli and up the field, and that was the fact that he's kind of stuck up on the outside of the racetrack right now. So we'll see if that 158 can make the move. You can actually see those drivers dipping the left side tires down and onto the apron in 3 and 4 to get those things to rotate instead of pushing up the hill. But Castle actually better that time through, and around the outside maintains position 7 as they fight even further up the road. Coleman Presley caught the fence last time by, not that hard of a lick, but it has opened up the bottom for Justin Haley, who's going to try to get that LeafFilter car down on the bottom. Not going to be able to do so into turn 3. Presley did a good job of recovering there.
One of our LeafFilter drivers in tonight's LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series event at the 2008 scan of Phoenix is Justin Haley in that 11 machine, driver for Colleague Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in real life. And if you look at Coleman Presley's cars, those two bounce off each other. You can see the damage, especially on the flare of the right front fender. That's knocked in pretty significantly, and that tire is just sort of hanging out there off to the right side of that car. And meanwhile, a little bit further back, we're still dancing, trying to figure out whether or not they want to get down to single file racing or whether or not it's better to go maybe 2 wide, 3 wide in spots. But as it stands, it's still Presley hanging tough on the outside. Haley hasn't cleared him yet.
And one of the things I talked about with Josh Williams, in fact, in preparation for tonight, was he mentioned some of the difficulty when it comes to passing. Some good racing, yes, but it can be difficult to complete the said moves on the track. But one of the drivers, again, you have to keep an eye on. Justin Haley was one of the quickest drivers in practice. In their practice race just yesterday, too, James, ran second and third all race long before he got into incidents. In a good position in this top 4 battle still.
And in that sense, and I think it's so interesting, you don't necessarily consider any version of Phoenix to be a short track, Evan, but when you take into account the fact that these cars do struggle to pull off the corner and separate themselves from one another, then all of a sudden you have to start racing this place like it is a short track and figure out how to get back into the throttle as early as possible without wrecking yourself or wrecking someone to your outside. And it becomes momentum-based racing, and in that sense, it becomes short-track racing all over again.
It's funny because it's a duality, because if you have the NASCAR Cup Series cars here, even though it is a mile racetrack, it is certainly within that kind of category, a short track. But again, these street stocks actually used to tracks much shorter than that. So it's almost like a super speedway of these things. But no matter what track you put these cars on, you are always going to have to drive a street stock like you are at a short track. You can put them out to the biggest speedway ever. They're still going to be groggy off of the corners. You're still going to need to keep that momentum up and get back into the throttle quickly. I think that's the appeal of these cars, and you're seeing great racing right now. This lead pack is P1 down through 7. Barry up front, Landon Castle in the back, and you are not going to see your race leaders running away with the lead at all tonight. We're 13 laps in of the 70 on the board, and it is real good right now. Again, still headlined by that battle with Presley and Haley for P2. Josh Berry made that move around Iannarelli a bit ago, and he's been enjoying the clean air since.
One of the interesting quirks of this street stock that you got the momentum-based racing like it's a short track, but you can't pull away from someone almost like it is racing at a super speedway with these street stocks. And maybe when you sit back and think about it a little bit, as Coleman Presley gets a good run on the outside and may well bring Ty Majeski with him, Justin Prince, is maybe you look towards a place like New Hampshire in particular. Feels very similar to me in a lot of ways, just in the way that you have to race these cars. And in that sense, it might not be a surprise just because we consider New Hampshire's at least slate of racing on a regular basis. That track, I think, in particular, more so than a lot of the other tracks, especially at the national level, has been home to a lot of grassroots racing. We've seen the Pinty Series race there, the Whelen Modified Tour race there. We've seen what was the K&N Pro Series, what is now the ARCA Menard Series race there in the past. And it lends itself to a lot of grassroots racing, which just sort of seems to be befitting of all of these types of short track cars.
Indeed, and you're absolutely right that they drive fairly similar, especially with the street stock. Keep in mind, only about a 20-mile-per-hour difference between corner exit to where you get to the corner entry at this track and how much speed there is, but a bit of shuffling for some of these cars at the moment. Well, they've been fighting for this race lead. They've been bumping and banging themselves in the back of the pack. One thing to note, Martin Truex Jr. was up to 11th spot, guys, just got shuffled to 17th from contact alone.
Got shuffled high in 3 and 4 that last time by and had to get out of the throttle. And as he got out of the throttle, he lost spots to a few folks in this field. Justin Allgaier, Ross Chastain, Ty Gilliland, Tyler Overstreet, who might be trying to use a little bit of the doppelganger effect as Kyle Busch gets into Martin Truex Jr. and sends him up the hill. So, and then a little bit more contact between those two. So, a little bit of fun, I guess, Evan, with the Jughead's Racing drivers there down the dog leg.
Yeah, the extracurriculars amongst teammates. How about that? And now you got an actual unfamiliar face, or not a friendly foe, I guess, in the forward. Kevin Harvick up and onto the bumper. So the Cup Series drivers mid-pack in this one. And listen, these are all guys who have come up through the short track ranks. They know how to wheel these big kind of groggy cars around like this. Harvick maybe took a bit of a swipe to the rear end that time and a spin in front. Oh, and it's a huge mess. The 30 at Gilliland is up and over, and it is a melee on the back straightaway.
First yellow flag of the evening comes out as Tyler Overstreet was on his lid for a little bit and only just got back down onto terra firma. We'll take a look at the replay momentarily and see what happened in all of this and where it started. It was a little bit further up the racetrack that this whole incident came unglued and undone. As we take a look at the screen, we'll see what happened. Looks like it was maybe Ryan Truex, I believe, who was around first in all this. He, I think, got some help and maybe did himself in. He got into Kevin Iannarelli and then went sideways. And as he came back up the racetrack, everybody tried to avoid the 40. He makes contact with the 20 machine of Harrison Burton. And then you see Overstreet and company pile in, and Justin Prince, it was on from there.
Yeah, bump drafting doesn't work in corner entry here at Phoenix. 3-car bump drafts don't work well, and Kevin Iannarelli actually said this specifically. If anybody goes up that racetrack or has a mistake in the corner, usually everyone else follows suit. That's what was the case for a lot of these cars, and nowhere to go for the second pack of cars, including Steve Myers and Ryan Truex being flipped upside down.
Just as we look at some of the names that were involved in that incident, we mentioned Overstreet. Kyle Busch got some damage. I believe Parker Kligerman was swept up in this a little bit. We saw Todd Gilliland sideways. Justin Allgaier was in trouble, as was Ross Chastain. A few more cars in the back went around. Ryan Truex swept up at the beginning of this. Elliott Sadler, Bobby Labonte, all caught up in this incident. So a decent amount of cars with damage in this race already. Evan Pasoko.
Yeah, and basically everybody there mid-pack with the battle that we were watching, we saw Truex first sideways in traffic, and that's where it kind of all kicked off. But a split decision this time through on pit strategy. It looks like top 14 drivers or so opt to stay out in this one, so tailed by A.J. McCarron. And in the race off for the pit lane, 15th on the back. You see drivers now get it out with service. Again, unlimited trips down to the pit lane, not limited in the amount of tires they can take, and of course never in how much fuel that you can add to the race car. But a lot of drivers sitting on the pit lane for quite some time. They may actually lose a lap here as your race leaders are coming through 1 and 2.
And it begs the question, it's something that we've seen in a few races across iRacing in the past few weeks, Justin, but that Nutrient Ag Solutions fast repair that these drivers have, do you use it this early if you can save it in any way, shape, or form? There are a few that might have so much engine damage that they have no choice, Justin Prince, but if you have the choice, do you use it now or do you wait to hang on to that until later?
Well, it depends on the type of damage. If I'm one of the cars who flipped in the air, yeah, I'm using it because it's my only choice. If you are, say, with only minor bodywork damage or enough where you can get it fixed under a full caution period on a couple pit stops, I'm saving it until I need it if I get into an air significant wreck. Because remember, if you use it, you lose it. So that's what you got to think. And many drivers will probably save it all the way until, say, even the final 20 laps if they get the chance.
The thinking being that we might not necessarily be done with yellows. As the lights go off on our pace truck, the restart will come on lap 22. We'll take a moment before we go green, though, to remind you of some of the other events that are coming up in the world of iRacing this week. And tomorrow night it starts on Fox Sports 1 of the Fox Sports app, destination Tulsa, Oklahoma, as we go Wednesday night iRacing at the Chili Bowl, which should be a tremendous amount of fun. Then the Subaru Rallycross All-Star Invitational presented by Yokohama visits the long course in Atlanta Friday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday night. We run right into Saturday Night Thunder, which becomes Friday Night Thunder from Martinsville Speedway. And then Saturday afternoon, the big one, the finale, the NASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series from North Wilkesboro Speedway. Evan, that I think we don't need to explain too much on how special that is, as the lights are going to go back on the pace car. We're going to get one more lap under yellow, but I struggle to find a good way to just express how impressive that is, especially personally as a native North Carolinian who drove past the ghost of North Wilkesboro and drove past that facility going up and down the highway to the mountains so many times. To see that come back to life in any way, shape, or form, I think is going to be a cool thing, not only for all of us who have been involved in the sim for a long time, but I think for a lot of fans of NASCAR, and especially those who were around and got the pleasure to see North Wilkesboro in real life or watch racing in real life there on TV.
It's cool for many reasons because, of course, we have seen tracks get scanned onto the iRacing service. Tonight's an example that was active when it was scanned. That was either later modified or just taken down altogether. But I think it's the first time where we actually do it the other way around. That iRacing has gone back and scanned a track that is no longer in use and is going to bring it into the sim. And listen, I think people were already hyped enough when they found out last year that this racetrack was getting scanned. Of course, news kind of leaked out the last couple of weeks that it was going to be getting onto the service in June. So basically a month from now or so is when you could expect to be able to race that as an iRacing customer. So if you didn't need any more hype that was already around it, of course, we're going to see the debut of it exclusively in the Pro Invitational Series this upcoming Saturday afternoon. It's going to be a real fun event, and I know all of us have a part in that behind the scenes. So that'll be super cool again for the historic value of the fact that I think it's the first time we see a track come from a defunct state to active state on iRacing, as opposed to the opposite way, which is how it'd been for a couple of different tracks here on the service.
And for those who like the nostalgia of a place like North Wilkesboro, all those signs have been updated to 1987 spec. I was looking at some of the screenshots earlier. I saw a little Coke as It sign. It almost wanted to go grab a new Coke and try and swig one of those down. So for those who might like the nostalgia of, say, maybe a Stranger Things or TV shows of the like that focus from certain time periods of the past, you might get a kick out of that aspect as well. But we're getting ready to go back. Green Flag Racing in the LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series as Josh Berry, the former champion of the Solid Rock Carriers Car Store, leads them to green over Coleman Presley. Kevin Iannarelli still in third, but they tear it up in turn one, and they go all over the place, and we may not get one more lap in before the yellow flag comes out. Nothing yet. There it is finally. Everybody all over the place. It is a junkyard in turn one, Justin Prince.
And you can really point towards Harrison Burton is where it triggered up. And one of the main things with this car is it is tricky to get through the gears without ending up getting into neutral or stalling out a little bit. Looks like he got stuck in neutral right there, and big, massive checkup.
He got stuck in neutral and then got some help from Kevin Hamlin in the 88, who had absolutely no time to react as Burton struggled to get going. And then he gets turned and everything goes all over the place as you sit on board here, and we'll see just how crazy things got on this restart, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, you could heard it right there, and the light was on as well on the dash. Obviously not what he wanted to do, and I mean, that could have happened, of course, at any racetrack, but the way that these cars kind of stay all together and how you kind of get things slowly up to speed, you're not really going to get away with the gear shift. There was absolutely nowhere for that 88 machine behind to get away. Let's go on board with Steve Myers. He's way back in this line. Again, it's going to happen up by the start-finish line. You can see everything fine. They're actually getting up and through the gears now, and all of a sudden, you see one car get turned sideways. It is chaos in front. He's hard onto the binders, doing a lot better of a job than most folks. And then boom, right there from behind, he gets clipped. It is up and over. And that's how he goes back into the 30s. The only positive, hit it up on all fours.
Got some help from Elliott Sadler, who himself locked his car up, getting at least some sort of space, trying to avoid the incident, and then became the meat in a Sadler and Todd Gilliland sandwich, did Steve Myers, the vice president of iRacing, based out of the Massachusetts office. So Steve, with a little bit of damage to that 37, that car actually looked a lot better than I thought it had any right to be, but so many different drivers involved in this incident and torn up in this wreck. Just looking at the replay as they slid all over the place. Obviously, Harrison Burton started the whole deal, but you saw a lot of folks get caught up. Ryan Truex, Boris Cook, who won last week at Talladega, Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 machine, Bobby Labonte again. Drew Herring almost looked like he was trying to do a little bit of gymnastics practice with his street stock. He went up and over multiple times as more people slid into this. Brent Wentz was caught up in this incident as well, as was the 2 machine of, I believe, A.J. McCarron. So a lot of names swept up in this, JP, and a lot of Nutrient Ag Solutions fast repairs used to boot.
I think a couple of those drivers you just mentioned, remember, were just involved in the first big one, so they might not have that available to them if they had to use it. So that's where the decisions come into play, and that's where the luck comes into play. And now It's going to be very intriguing how the rest of this race shapes out here as they continue to shuffle along the pace car.
They continue to shuffle behind the pace car and continue to line themselves back up. And as we continue to roll through everything, for those who like a certain pigskin sport, we may have a person of interest in this field to you in the 79 of Mike Clay, one of the analysts for ESPN. And I know they've been a little bit busy over the past few weeks, but pretty cool to see folks from all across the sports world jumping into this, Evan, and pretty cool to see a few different networks involved too.
Yeah, and he calls himself, he's a self-described iRacing hazard, but he's doing a pretty good job, and I will say, I think one of the nicest looking cars in the field as well. There's a lot to choose from for that number 79 machine. But yeah, we've seen that kind of all across the board, from things to the rallycross events and everything in between, that these special events have not been exclusive to just the drivers nor the team members. It has been, kind of more expanded to crew members and media types, and Mike Clay, one of those drivers involved in this one, who I know does a bunch of iRacing and does a lot of good content there as well if you want to give him a follow on the Twitter. So he's in this event. And, somebody else that we kind of touched on Pike a little bit earlier but didn't really go much into detail is that Martin Truex Jr. competing in this race this evening. And there's a story behind that because he's a little bit late to the iRacing scene, and he has had a sim through all of this, but actually was not up in North Carolina, found himself down in Florida and unable to get right up top, and of course did not want to go to North Carolina until he knew that he was in a healthy state. So he stayed down there for just a little bit and has finally been able to get home where his sim rig is. So that's the explanation behind Truex's a little bit of a late appearance, fashionably late. If you're a champion, I think you get to do so.
I think especially when we consider the look of that car, fashionably would be an understatement on that machine. And same for Clay, too. I think one that I know Evan's going to like, someone who I know once said, and I quote, "My boy Bobby with the spec map." You can see the matte look on that Clay machine as well as Josh Berry takes off and gets going. And we go back, Green Flag Racing in the LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series. And Berry takes off. Presley will get to second. Meanwhile, they bunch up a little bit further back. Jonathan Davis takes advantage. Looks like Taylor Gray got stuck on the outside. Here comes Ty Majeski and Anthony Alfredo to the inside. And looks like Ryan Flores also in that mix too.
Yeah, a lot of shuffling right now amongst the middle of the pack already amongst these drivers. Having to be careful. Just tight squeeze. Ericsson just able to get clear. Remember, had that strong race the last time these competitors were in the street stocks.
Open, we will admit, as these drivers continue to fight and continue to battle, one of the more entertaining aspects for me of this race and of these street stocks, the way they're getting around the corners, is we see a few more cars down to the inside. Looks like Tyler Overstreet gets sent down into the grass, but they are certainly not straight going down the straightaways, Evan Pasoko. There's a considerable amount of Gen 4-esque crabbing going on with these things. And I get a good kick out of it when these things go sideways down these straightaways just to get that little extra bit of speed.
I love it, 110%. And you're seated now as you go down to the straightaway on board with Ty Majeski, who started up at a number 2 spot, but is back into P10's got a front row seat at that battle in front of him amongst the 158 in the 17 car. That's Taylor Gray trying to work the outside, and it looks like that's who Majeski is going to go with here. Going to go the long way around, but battling going on up front as well for the race lead. You can see it on the horizon there. Josh Berry under fire as it is Coleman and Presley looking to the bottom. Berry's been oh so good tonight up front of protecting that inside, that maybe that was a chink in the armor, but he's able to stay ahead of Presley, clearing him down now for now in turn 1.
Berry's had a good car in a few of these races. He won the second race of this series at Kansas Speedway back in March, so he's got victory and he's got a win sticker right next to his name in this LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series. Coleman Presley, though, I don't know if we've quite seen him as strong as we have tonight, Justin Prince, but he really has figured out something about this Phoenix International Raceway. And same, I think, can be said of Justin Haley, who's putting together his best performance today in this series as well.
Yeah, I've been very impressed by Haley, but remember, Coleman Presley does have experience on the iRacing sim when it comes to racing the street stock specifically. He and TJ Majors used to run a lot of leagues in 2019 involving the street stock and some of their Wednesday nights. And now that pace transitioning once more to this track tonight. Looks like Presley, though, just wants to get a run, just can't quite time it up yet, and is electing just to stay behind Barry and save, maybe.
One of those cases where even though the tire wear and the fall off is largely insignificant in these street stocks, I've heard some folks just describe the tires as hard as rocks. It's not necessarily a factor that you take into account when you're racing these things. It's certainly something that you can watch out for, as we see a little bit of action with Anthony Alfredo and company a little bit further back in this group. But one of those cases, Evan, where there may be something, if you're not necessarily saving the tires, you might be just saving your own mental strength and energy more than anything else, so that you can gear yourself up for a hard charge when we get to maybe 15 or 10 laps to go, and it really does matter.
And we can see right here with Jeske on the door there in this battle with the 17 Machine Gray is going to win out. We hear these drivers over and over tell us, how kind of stressed out they get doing these. Is now it's Alfredo crossing to the bottom. He wants to make the pass on Gray. Not everybody is as cool of a customer, and it's going to be contact. This Alfredo door slam in the 17. You'll see the 158 car, the 15, but multiple cars going to come up on the scene here. And now we're going to have more contact as Alfredo gets moved on the bottom. So these drivers right here are not conserving any of that mental focus. I mean, they are tiring themselves out. Not everybody is as cool of a customer as Dale Jr. is driving on the sim, one-handed and chilling. All these guys up and on the wheel, and they are not giving anything back here, as they are still bouncing off each other as we close in on halfway home.
Justin Prince, I feel like I missed the memo where we get to engage bumper car mode at halfway. We're almost at that point, just a few laps shy of it, and they've just been sliding right into each other with no regard for the sides of these cars whatsoever. Ryan Flores, Jonathan Davis, Anthony Alfredo literally bouncing off the sides of one another over the past few laps. At the moment, it's Davis who has at least a nose ahead of this group, but it's Flores who's got his machine down to the inside.
Yeah, and so far we've seen both lines have been good to try and make moves. The top line also has been better to defend because you can press them on down, slow up the momentum just a little bit, especially down the front straightaway, to try and hold on to the positions. And looks like Flores, bit of contact again. Alfredo hits him too.
Alfredo bouncing off Flores, bouncing off Davis. Meanwhile, Justin Haley has gotten to the inside of Coleman Presley for P2, but yellow flag is out on the speedway, and wait to see where the incident was.
I believe that's a competition caution, in fact, because drivers were told around lap 40 tonight they would get a caution flag. Now we're going to have to see how things shape out here, and that was just coming, mind you, as we're side by side, off and on between Barry and Presley, as we've seen, and drivers like Justin Haley now get a chance to try and calm back down and close back on in.
And it gives us the chance to bunch everybody up, but it also gives us the chance to see some drivers potentially stall out. And it's a slow clutch on these street stocks. And I think especially important to note that on restarts we saw the trouble that it gave Harrison Burton. I think this car may have one of the longest throws of any car in the sim, as we see a little bit of pit strategy. And look at that, Evan Pashoka. One time at Jeske electing not to come down pit road this time.
Well, your top 12 drivers as of the moment of yellow had not pitted. We saw that group of drivers come in a little bit earlier. So Majeski is going to stay out, and that's going to be a one-way ticket to the front of the field. And it may be lonely up there because it looks like just about everybody else is down for service. I see a couple of drivers going by, but some of those may just be lap drivers actually trying to get their lead lap position in. So let's see if Josh Berry, first one down, could be the first driver off of the pit lane, and of course would then have a significant advantage over the likes of Bajeski. Truex missed his box by a mile. He's reversing down to the pit lane. Again, it is an interesting one where it curves around the inside of turns 1 and 2, and Josh Berry going to lose the race off of the pit lane amongst the cars on the 4, because you see the number 20 are TJ Majors out first in that category.
Only behind the 10 machine of Ross Chastain, one of our LeafFilter drivers in his Nutrient Ag Solutions machine. But Chastain and TJ Majors take 2 tires on this pit stop. Everybody else behind them takes 4. So, Justin Prince, Barry was the first car off of the drivers that took 4 tires. The problem is that he will restart as it stands now in the 7th spot, because Majeski stayed out, as did Tyler Overstreet and the 51 of Garrett Smithley.
Yeah, and those drivers gambling on the fact that here they've already come down for service in some of their cases at one point with some of the incidents, which is the case for those drivers, so they feel comfortable on the fuel, or they're trying to gain the track position there, especially with, as we talked about, the tires not having too much fall off as was expected by many of these drivers. So this is a bit of a gamble, but it does shake up the front runners. I'm more curious to see, though, how TJ Majors and Ross Chastain are going to be handling when this green flag drops. Mind you, the fall-off difference, there wasn't any amongst the tires which were old at the time and the fresh tires when drivers had to pit for some of the incidents.
Before we go back green flag racing, we'll bring you our iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing for the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Majeski leads Overstreet, Smithley, Chastain, and TJ Majors, the top five. Then it's Josh Berry, Josh Williams, Jordan Erickson, Kevin Iannarelli, and Coleman Presley, the top 10, JP.
Ryan Flores in 11th spot, Alfredo, Duggar, Haley, Kevin Hamlin in 15th, Kevin Harvick quietly in 16th spot at +8, Landon Castle 17th, Dale Jr. 18th, Parker Kligerman, Steve Myers round out the top 20.
Don Gill and Martin Truex Jr., Mike Clay, Regan Smith, Ron Cash back to 25th. It's Jonathan Davis, Brent Wentz, Ryan Truex, Dave Vincent, AJ McCarron back to 30th.
And to round out the field, 31st on the back of the Seall guy. Labonte on the lead lap. Knaus, Gray, Herring, and Burr laps down still in it, along with Kyle Long and Brian Boris Cook through 39th. The DNFs to Kyle Busch, Ed Sadler, and Tim Clausen. But we're getting set, JP, after the restart as we are back underway. And James, it is Majeski out in front on 44 lap old tires. It's going to do this thing.
As Majeski leads this field, we'll remind you that with over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is the original esports racing game. And for more information, you visit iRacing.com today. To round out our Midway Race Break propers, there's a little bit more action further back in the field. Ryan Truex up in the fence, a little bit of contact back there with a few more cars. Looks like Regan Smith got some damage in the 189 of Chad Knaus gets turned. Taylor Gray into the fence, Justin Allgaier around. Martin Truex Jr. on his lid. No yellow flag yet. And finally, the yellow flag comes out as they wreck down the front straightaway, Justin Prince.
That was a rough one for MTJ, absolutely. He said earlier today in an interview released by Racer.com that he wanted to see if he can have anything for them young whippersnappers, and just cartwheel down the front straightaway after the contact between Gray and Knaus. Knaus just came across the front end of Gray and nowhere to go for the couple of drivers involved in the incident.
It was a weird situation just because Knaus was trying to get underneath Regan Smith and checked up just a bit to make sure that he didn't run into Smith on corner exit. When he did that, he tried to get to the inside, and by the time he was going to the inside, Taylor Gray was already there. So Knaus goes into the fence, and then the rebound sends Gray back across the front straightaway right into Martin Truex Jr. and Justin Allgaier, who absolutely had no chance of avoiding that incident. Then, very sneakily, does Harrison Burton slip by on the inside, and Drew Herring just gets on the brakes, and poor Bobby Labonte a little bit further back has absolutely nowhere to go in that Piedmont Airlines machine. That'll be a fitting paint scheme for anybody who tries to pull it out on Saturday or at North Wilkesboro, given the headquarters of Piedmont were not terribly far away from North Wilkesboro, about an hour east in Winston-Salem way back in the day. But in either case, more wrecking and more chances to give us room to breathe and more Nutrient Ag Solutions fast repairs to boot. Evan Pasoko.
Yeah, we got more cars down at the pit lane, and it's not all going to be just Bobby Labonte who's missing the front end, and obviously Nidra Bear's got a couple of drivers just topping off on things, but it gives us, there it is, there's the engine, not going to make it all the way into the box, so if he does not have one of those fast repairs available, he's going to be good. Look at that timing, got the quick repair just in time. If that thing had blown up in turn 4, I don't think it would have coasted the distance, so Bobby Labonte going to be very lucky in this one. He may actually get that quick repair and get back rolling actually without losing a lap here. We'll see if he's going to be able to pull that one off. But you know, up front now, is it going to be this stop and start? You got Majeski, 48 lap old tires. Smithley, 23 30 nearly lap-old tires for Overstreet. So your top three, the one thing they have in common is they all stayed out on the last one. But other than that, it was a very different pit strategy for all of them. As you can take a look at the last pit stop lap on the left-hand side of your screen. When you talk about tire fall off, it's kind of tough. Best lap of the race for Majeski, a 31.808, and he's still running about high 31s, low 32s. So, I mean, it's not awful here, so I don't think it's impossible.
The hard thing, though, with the street stock, Seven, is that when you're looking at lap times, yes, they matter to some degree, but they aren't as important with the street stocks as they might be with, say, a Cup car, an Xfinity car, a truck car, just because so much of the racing in these machines, as we talked about, is momentum-based. And when you've got racing that's momentum-based and you've got a lot of cars bunched up side by side with one another, it's almost more important just to beat the guy right next to you. It's not necessarily about whether or not you can start gaining on someone, because we haven't really had a lot of situations or a lot of drivers, Justin Prince, where they've been all on their own and they've been in a situation where they've just needed to effectively hot lap for 5 to 10 laps to try and run somebody down.
Yeah, indeed, and that's where the rhythm can come in at this point. But the general, keep in mind, he's been able to recover a lot of the track position lost from one of the earlier incidents with that first caution flag. And remember, had to be one of the drivers who had to start in the back because of how he finished at Talladega. So I have to keep an eye on TJ Majors. He was the quickest driver in all of practice, James, and stayed up there. No one even came close to him until the final 10 minutes of the session before qualifying.
His lights are off on the pace car. Fun story about the general, TJ Majors. Yeah. All of these drivers in the LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing series have their own nicknames amongst each other. And TJ, since he is one of the chieftains of this league, along with Kevin Hamlin in the 88s, got the nickname the General. Everybody's got one. We had a few that ended up popping into the Surfer tonight, so a few more names that are floating around and a few more nicknames available, but just a little bit of fun and a little bit of fancy that the drivers and folks in this LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing series try to put on as they go 3 wide for P3 in the middle of the corner, and somehow, some way, Tyler Overstreet was able to survive after getting sent through the middle. Coleman Presley's now in that spot as Kevin Iannarelli gets to his inside, up to the high side. Evan Pashoko is the 85 of Jordan Erickson.
The Overstreet was not at all comfortable in the middle there. Had a big bobble, ended up on the outside line. You mentioned the likes of Overstreet and others who, of course, checked this up. Jordan Erickson on the bumper. The 85 was the one who got squeezed out in the third lane. They're going to be okay. Now it's the 12 car trying to hang on. Williams a little bit sideways. Overstreet peeking to the outside, and you can see the back end of these cars just slide. No matter how low or high you are in the corner, you're going to work to keep them flat. There's going to be contact behind. That's Presley into the door. The twin of Anthony Alfredo, a Saturday Night Thunder race winner now, and he's going to get bumped by the 15 Ryan Flores. He's going to go way up and out of the groove, almost into the fence now. More 3 wide. It's Haley on the very inside.
And I think Alfredo might have got the wall just a bit. In either case, they're 3 wide, just a bit further back. Tim Duggar stuck in the middle with nowhere to go. Alfredo bounces off Duggar's machine, then slides behind Duggar, and to his inside comes the 89 machine of Landon Castle. Justin Prince with Parker Kligerman right in tow.
Yeah, Landon Castle with that face on his hood, trying to dive that face underneath the left rear quarter panel with a 5. Just can't get there. Just absolute craziness on each and every one of these starts so far tonight. This has been the case all evening. And for Landon Castle, he's coming in fairly quickly as they're starting to set their fastest lap times of the race.
Beginning to start picking up time. Majeski just set his fastest lap with a 31.776 as Kevin Hamlin gets the wall a little bit further back in the field. But they are beginning to start laying it down and start picking them up as we see Dale Earnhardt Jr. get into Tim Duggar, and Duggar goes around in the middle of the corner, up in the fence. Everybody sliding sideways in the middle of 3 and 4. We'll wait to see if we get the yellow flag. Nothing yet from Joey Knight Race Control, and now we finally get a yellow flag to bring us back under pace speed once again. And as the replay will come up momentarily, you'll see what happened. This was all Junior just going full send to the corner, gets into Tim Duggar. Kevin Harvick has nowhere to go. Duggar gets the fence, and then they all went sideways to try and avoid all of the madness happening in front of them. A.J. McCarron got down to the bottom and just avoided Kevin Harvick. Justin Allgaier was not so lucky. Neither was Ron Capps in the 28 JP as they all went sideways in turn 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Dale Jr. tried to set it into a hole and maybe just get into the brakes. Everybody else, though, they were bumping and banging even before all that. Kevin Hamlin was torn into the wall. Then everyone else got clear of that and thinking, oh, I'm fine. I can focus on what's happening. Race is green. Then Ron Capps sees what's happening in front of him. He and everybody else starts locking up the brakes. Everyone starts sliding and ba-bam.
And bam! Ooh, got a new one there, Evan Pasoko. We need more catchphrases. I guess you and I have to start working on it a little bit more. But it was a bit of a bam moment, especially for Allgaier and Ron Capps, who just sort of got collected in that and ended up being more victims than aggressors in that case.
Yeah, I thought we might have actually been able to get away with that one without a yellow until Capps got involved, because until that point it was just Duggar up against the fence, a couple of cars scattering down on the bottom, and once the NHRA champ got turned up and into the outside wall, it was a multi-car incident and really no choice for race control but to toss the yellow flag out. And I will agree with you on the point of catchphrases, James, although normally if you get attributed with a catchphrase, it's not on purpose. So maybe if we can kind of take control of the catchphrases, that'll help us out.
To be fair, I guess I'm really the only one that's got one, because I know there's a certain person who's got your side-by-side growl down pretty well pat, especially on the Twitch side of things. And a big hello to those of you who are watching tonight's broadcast of the LeafFilter Gutter Protection iRacing Replacement Series on Twitch. And for those of you that are already over there, you get to stay put once we get done, because when we finish up this race, we're going to head over to the Podium Esports Twitch channel for their coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro, the feeder series into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, also racing right now for the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the truck. So more action there. And if you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can hop on over to twitch.tv/iRacing to see a little bit more action when we're done here. And while we're under yellow, we'll also take a moment to bring you your Team LeafFilter update this evening and a recap of where our LeafFilter drivers are running. Ross Chastain is the highest up in the field of that group. His Nutrient Ag Solutions Chevy Camaro is currently in the 5th spot. It's been a pretty good night for Justin Haley, too, who's got his LeafFilter Camaro up in the 11th position. So perfect symmetry there with the 11 in P11. Chris Rice in the 16 machine in the 26th spot. He was swept up in a few incidents earlier and is trying to set everything back up to make sure he's in good shape around the back. And we'll see how those drivers get on in the final 20 laps of this race. For more information on LeafFilter Gutter Protection, you can visit them at www.leaffilter.com. A few more cars getting wave arounds in tonight's LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series action from the old version of Phoenix International Raceway. And yes, we do get to use the International because way back in the day, that's what it was called. And it was PR from its inception back in 1969 all the way to 2017 is when ISM, I think, picked up the sponsorship and then shortened to Phoenix Raceway with the new configuration last year. But a lot of history here that I think a lot of people don't recognize, Evan Pusoko. This was really the first stop out west that NASCAR properly had outside of the old racetracks in Ontario and Riverside, California.
And, we've talked a lot tonight about, the different car track combos and, all the different things that we've seen, not just in this replacement series. Obviously, tonight a far throw from what we saw in the Cup cars at Talladega a couple of weeks ago. But I have to say, through all of the different events we've had, tonight has been such a good show through 59 laps. And we're not done because Ty Majeski on the old tires, he got way out in front the last time. The pace car wanted to get out of the way. Instead, we'll hold for just a moment and go around one more time, but that was kind of the only time we've actually seen your race leaders run away, and I don't think it was because, Majeski, Smith, Lee, and Berry had a ton of speed. I think it was one of those close 3-wide calls that kind of spaced each other out, but inside of the final 20, this thing could wrap up quick on the stopwatch if it can stay green, so it'll be kind of a group effort here, top to bottom, to see how these next 20 laps play out. Is this going to be the last last, maybe one of the last restarts in this race, or do we still have some sparks yet to fly?
Do we have more yellows in the wings as the pace truck will make its hard left turn onto pit road? This time by waiting to see how everyone will shake out as Majeski leads Smithley, Barry, TJ Majors, and Ross Chastain in the top 5. Pace truck will peel off. We will go green this time by. We'll watch and see how everyone gets back on the gas. And Smithley got a little bit of help from TJ Majors, who got going pretty early. They already fanned out a little bit more action further back there. That was Justin Haley, who went all the way down to the bottom as they go 2 and 3 wide into turn 1 on the restart. But out front, it's still Ty Majeski making all the moves and patrolling the field from the top, Justin Prince.
That was a perfect start for Barry. He's now giving some shoves. He's been not afraid to give little tiny love taps in the corner, just little tiny bumps to say, I want to go, I got a quicker car. And right now he's using that pace to get right on the back end of that 45. Just nowhere to take the run because Majeski, he's trying to mirror drive and trying to defend as hard as he can. You're knowing the pace of Barry.
You have to watch out. Josh Berry, especially on these short tracks, a driver who runs Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s late model Ford JR Motorsports in the Solid Rock Carriers cars, sure, week in, week out across short tracks in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, and Georgia. The man from all those short tracks in the Southeast doing a really nice job as he gets underneath Ty Majeski to go for the race lead, and TJ Majors right there in a hot pursuit. Evan Pasoko and Ross Chastain, too, who we haven't had the chance to talk about too much tonight, but all of a sudden, here he is making moves in the final 20 laps of tonight's race.
And Chastain and Majors really the newest guys up here, the lead cars on the fresh tires. Is that going to give them any advantage as Barry was able to work his way to the inside of Majeski, and Majors going to force his way to the inside of Barry. The bump and run on the inside of turn 3. It's not going to get him all the way up out of the way, but Majors has got that Pennzoil 22 down on the bottom. They are tight packed the 1. Majeski across the nose of Ericsson to maintain P5. Your front 2 battles side by side, as Smithley's a little bit slow at a 2, and that'll give Chastain sole possession to P3, a race high for him.
Justin Prince, it makes you wonder, as Chastain tried to make the big move to the inside and ends up checking himself up. I was about to say it makes you wonder if staying out might not necessarily have been the right move for Majeski, because everybody else who stayed out and didn't get tires some 20 laps ago, well, you got Smithley, who's right there with Majeski, who then gets into Majeski and sends him down into turn 1. But Tyler Overstreet was the other one of that bunch who stayed out. He's all the way down in 14th now. He slid way, way back. So it makes you wonder if Majeski might be holding on with those tires beginning to fade, and if he may be in trouble as here comes Smithley to the inside of the 45.
I think he absolutely is in trouble. Those tires might have started absolutely clipping to this point. Remember, had to come down after one of the incidents. At one point was up to 25 laps older tires than his other competitors. At this point, 46 laps on them, and there's the slide.
There goes Majeski. He goes way up the hill and out of the way. A little bit of bouncing from Garrett Smithley and Jordan Erickson, and a whole host of cars go underneath. Here comes Josh Williams. Here comes Coleman Presley. Here comes Parker Kligerman. They're all 3 wide into turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think they're real lucky to have survived that the first time, but is this pack going to be able to hang on? Presley leads the ball in the 59 car, and somebody else we haven't talked a ton about in the 77 to Kligerman down the inside of the 12 of Williams. These cars can take quite a shot. There's Erickson now onto the back bumper to Smithley. Hailwork to the inside, more 3 wide.
Big crash front straightaway, no yellow flag yet.
There they go.
The dog leg as well. At some point, we may get one, we may not. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is over and around on his roof, and finally, the yellow flag comes out, and we will have 2 incidents to dissect for you over this yellow flag. There was the one in the dog leg, but this starts with the incident on the front straightaway, which began in turn 4 with the 15 of Ryan Flores. He got tagged by Tyler Overstreet coming out of turn 4. Those two come together, bounce off of Anthony Alfredo. Then Todd Gillen comes in. Mike Clay Overstreet got nailed by Steve Myers in the 37, went over and on his lid and just pirouetted around the front stretch. Todd Gill and Taylor Gray run into one another on that front stretch. Regan Smith ends up in there. Bobby Labonte has nowhere to go. Tim Duggar ends up in all of this. I think Harrison Burton got some damage as well. And then the second one was with Ty Majeski and company over in, I'll call it the middle of the dogleg just about. It was wild stuff coming out of the corner as Smithley got the fence, Jordan Erickson got the fence, and then bounced off into Justin Haley in the 11. And as he went around, Majeski somehow actually made it through the middle, and then Dale Earnhardt Jr. got clipped. I couldn't tell by who initially, might have been Majeski himself, just trying to get up on Majeski's rear bumper, and instead spins himself around and bounces around, and I wonder if he's going to need a few Hardee's burgers there. Credit to Junior for the old school Hardee's logo there. That's you are a native North Carolinian when you pull that sort of thing out. But Junior up and around over in the dog leg, and we'll take a look and see how it came about on the front straightaway here. And as we ride around with Junior, we'll see some of the action that was present amongst the top 10 before they all went crazy out of 1 and 2.
And you can tell he's already sensing what's happening, especially with Erickson and Smithley, and right on the curb. Wow.
One of those.
He didn't hit anybody else. He just spun sideways. He ramped over the curb, and it hooked that race car, and that's how he flipped. So that's probably the worst wreck you can see at Phoenix without touching anything.
You want to talk about old school aspects of Phoenix that we've not talked about in forever and a day. How about the curb on the dog leg there? Because for those who don't have any knowledge of the way Phoenix used to be, of course, we talked about how this is the 2008 scan of Phoenix, but it was pretty tricky to get around that spot. There was a big curve that was right there on the apex of the dog leg, and a lot of grass underneath it. If you got caught in the grass or bounced off that curb too much, you'd actually damage the left side of the suspension of your car and end up having to go to the garage for repairs or launch yourself off into the air like Dale Earnhardt Jr. just did. So almost like the turtles that we saw get out a few people at Myrtle Beach a few weeks ago, Justin Prince. You got to be aware of some of these old school bits and pieces of these tracks because they could come up and bite you if you're not careful.
And it definitely bit Dale Jr. there big time, to say the very least. And remember back in the day, in the old gaming days, I used to hate those curbs because it would always shuffle the car around a lot if you hit the left side tires on them. Most drivers have been avoiding those curbs in that dogleg portion all night long tonight. So this has been interesting to see how this has been all faring out. But under 10 laps to go here, James. This is going to get wild.
Ye old gaming days. Goodness gracious. You make us all sound like grandpas as we... I guess we're about to reminisce on your days of playing NASCAR Racing 2003 season or 2002 season, or could go back all the way to NASCAR Racing 2, which I know a few of us got our start on that one. I know I was part of that bunch, and plenty of others as well. A lot of people have been all tied up into this, and very fitting that we see Steve Myers carrying the Papyrus colors, because it was Papyrus that developed all those games and then eventually reformed and became the basis for what we now know as iRacing. So there's your small world brought full circle as we get set for the restart on lap 72 of 80. We have green white checkers in hand if we need them, but right now it's all about whether or not Josh Berry can get away from Ross Chastain and whether or not we get a clean restart as they start fanning out in the back of the pack, almost Pocono style or Michigan style, as they get down into one more time. And here comes Parker Kligerman to the inside of Coleman Presley, Evan Pizzoco.
And Presley actually going to get out. Oh, he's going to turn major as the 22 off and into the grass. He's hard into the tires, but it is just one car, so we're probably going to stay green now 3 wide. That's the 77 to Kligerman on the bottom, and for a moment Williams was up top, but we will see a yellow, and it is a different mess. There is 6 cars, one of them flipping up in the air. I saw the 16 car going for a ride, and I think that is a big hit for Chris Rice.
Chris Rice all over the place and up in the air, and as some of the folks would say in some of the chats, big death happened in that wreck. Jordan Erickson was involved in that one, trying to see where that all panned out and where it began. Looks like Erickson might have been part of the beginning of it as they all stacked up in front of him. Actually, it was the 102 machine that I think is the culprit. Dave Vincent, who just ended up in the middle of a 4-wide sandwich. He was there along with Justin Allgaier, Landon Castle, and Jonathan Davis in the 158, all just racing for the same piece of real estate, and that would be at least one car too many for that particular spot on the racetrack, arguably two. So it was the 102 that goes over. Vincent gets spun, Jordan Erickson gets involved, and then it all goes off from there. But Chris Rice had the wildest ride of all, JP, up on his lid and over and around once again.
I don't think Allgaier realized they were coming up and very fast on Castle, and that's why he came up so quickly. Might have heard 3-wide call instead of a 4-wide, but just nowhere for a lot of these cars again to go. The Dirty Mo Posse driver of Vincent flipped up and over, and everybody else just nowhere to go as the cars again ricochet down from the outside safer barrier into the inside grass in 3.
The grass making things a little bit tricky as well. We know how that affected cars in the past, and I think to some degree you're seeing why we've seen so many of those patches of grass paved over. You look at Phoenix now, and across the board, it is all asphalt all the way around this place. There is not a speck of grass to be found anywhere on the racetrack or inside of it at the current Phoenix Raceway, because cars can dig into the turf and end up getting launched up in the air and end up all over the place. I think of Rusty Wallace, Ricky Rudd back in the day. You could make the argument for Carl Edwards and his splitter back in the All-Star race about 10 years ago, where he spun off into the grass at Charlotte Motor Speedway and the whole front end caved in once it dug in hard. Just one of those cases where you've got to be really, really careful if you leave the asphalt, Evan.
And one of the good things about the sim is you can have some of the challenges of grass without two negatives, and it is that splitter getting ripped off and as well wet grass. You're not going to get beached out there in the grass after the rain comes through if you do get stuck. And admittedly, I've always enjoyed the aesthetic of the grass at the inside of the racetrack. I mean, you know, most of the intermediate racetracks in the 90s and 2000s, kind of some of those newer, larger tracks that were built had a lot of the grass on down on the inside, and it has all since been removed. And I know that the folks over at Charlotte Motor Speedway are keeping the grass on the front by changing it over to the AstroTurf, which helps out with the splitter issue. But it's certainly something that I've always loved the aesthetic of, and maybe that AstroTurf solution's the way we can keep that.
With a special compound that I think included somewhere in the ballpark of 900 pounds of a very particular glue-like material to help slow cars down if they get caught out there. Also of note, and one to note in the chat on our Twitch channel in particular, just because it is Mother's Day soon after all, we've got Josh Williams' mom tuning in, very nervous here since he has climbed up through this field throughout the race and currently sits in the 5th spot as we get set for the restart with what will be 4 laps to go. Pretty much like a pending. If we need it, we'll have a few to play with, but we'll wish her early happy Mother's Day to Mama Williams and all the other mothers out there who are going to be celebrating this Sunday with their family and loved ones as we work our way through this period, as Josh Berry will lead them back to green. Pace truck will pull off. Just a handful of laps to go in this LeafFilter gutter protection replacements iRacing series event. The Street Stacks from Phoenix International Raceway. It was a good restart again for Berry. Ross Chastain will slide in right behind. Coleman Presley, I think, is going to get to 3rd, or at least try to get to 3rd. But here comes Parker Kligerman on the outside. Justin Prince.
Where did he come from? A plus 20 out of the race, near contact with Presley. Both of them nearly hooked fenders together, and this is where you need to be smart, as these drivers hoping this goes green to the checkered as they continue to shuffle for spots.
They work their way around. Meanwhile, Barry's got a rearview mirror full of Ross Chastain. 3 laps to go as they hit the stripe. Everybody in good shape already. One incident a little bit further back on the field. We'll wait to see if we get the yellow flag for it. Nothing yet from race control as Berry and Chastain have broken away from this group, and it looks like it's a 2-man shootout here in the Valley of the Sun for the checkered flag.
And an incident was Ron Capps. He got loose, got into the barrels on the end of the pit lane all on his own. He got back going, so the right call made. No yellow, and we stay green. This time, coming up to 2 to go, we have seen in these cars that you don't have to be gentle with the bumps. You can move somebody out of the way, and it's not even going to get him out of the lane unless you hit him hard enough. Is that what Ross Chastain goes to here? And is Josh Berry going to be able to slow it down maybe enough when that happens to stay in front? If they mix it up, don't forget about Presley. He sits third, and he's got a front row seat as they look for the white flag.
Simple question, Justin Prince, as they come for the white flag here at Phoenix International Raceway. Will Ross Chastain get into the 73, and or when does he send him?
Would have to come down to turn 4 if he elects to go with the bump and run, especially with how good Barry is on these short tracks and on iRacing.
As they come down the dog leg for the final time, Chastain right in tow of the 73, who went down to the inside early to make the block. Is Chastain going to be able to cross him over and get down on the apron to get the run? He'll get alongside the 73, and Josh Berry's going to pit himself up on the fence and just escape the clutches of the 10 machine to win tonight's LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series event at Phoenix International Raceway. And it was a very deft piece of strategy, I thought, from Josh Berry, Evan Pashoko, who went down to the inside of turn 3 very, very early, well before you would if you were following the regular racing line. I think that threw Ross Chastain off guard. To his credit, Chastain then immediately responded by trying to pull the crossover, but Berry got just enough room and momentum off the corner, and with maybe 6 inches in the wall to spare at best, got off the corner without getting run into by the 10 machine and sailed off to his second checkered flag of the series.
Yeah, you like that, that's somebody I think who has got some short track experience. So if he celebrates in the front straight, but you're right. Not only did he go down to the inside, down into 3, I think he knew that if Chastain was on the bumper, he was going to get moved. So he went low, but he also checked up. He actually lifted out of the throttle so that Chastain would end up alongside him. Yes, Ross did respond, backed up his corner when we went for the crossover, but that move to the bottom and the check up to force the 10 high is what wins Josh Berry this race. And also credit to Ross Chastain, who probably could have moved him on the quarter exit there as he sat on the quarter panel. We'll watch this final lap again, and you'll see the 23 not only go low, but he'll check up. That, combined with the fact that Chastain did not turn him when he had the chance off of the quarter, is why we saw such a good run to the end. This is the replay coming to the white flag.
And mind you too, Evan, as well, you hit upon it a little bit, could have made that contact, yes, especially off turn 4 with how close he was to the back bumper, but he was very respectful, kept it clean, didn't want to end up being that guy at the checker flag and use the contact. Yes, Chastain worked hard, but he wanted to keep it as clean as he could, I think, guys, to try and come home to this checkered flag in what was an exciting finish for these two.
As Josh Berry becomes the first driver to pick up 2 victories in this LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series. And we now bring you your full field rundown to tell you where your favorite driver finished. Berry gets the victory. The driver out of the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour picks up win number 2, backing up his victory at Kansas last month over Ross Chastain to, I believe, put together a series best finish for any of our drivers in the LeafFilter Gutter Protection team. P2 for him. Coleman Presley came home in the 3rd spot. Parker Kligerman, hard charger of the evening with ease. 33rd on the grid at races beginning. 4th on the pylon at races end. 5th went to Josh Williams, another top 5 for the winner of the Replacements 100 at Atlanta. Kevin Iannarelli finished in the 6th position. 7th went to Justin Haley. Ty Majeski was up front for a good chunk of the second half of this race and comes home with an 8th place finish. And a really solid run for Tim Duggar as well. Started in the 40th spot, and Justin Prince brought it home in 9th as Allgaier rounds out the top 10.
Thank you very much. I can't believe I brought it home in 9th. Let's put it that way. Anthony Alfredo in 11th spot. Jordan Erickson in 12th. Ryan Flores in 13th. Garrett Smithley, Regan Smith in 15th. Mike Clay quietly a plus 10 for him in 16th spot, with Todd Gillen, Landon Castle, the General TJ Majors, and Dave Vincent, a throwback to the early 2000s, coming home in the top 20.
And we'll continue on down through this. P21, Brett Wentz. You continue with Jonathan Davis, Steve Myers, and Chad Knaus. Through Ron Capps and Chris Rice, some of those drivers had some issues late. Those are the cars who actually finish on the lead lap in this one, along with A.J. McCarron, Harrison Burton, Drew Herring, and Bobby Labonte, who had a bit of a rough ride.
31st spot went to Kevin Harvick. Dale Earnhardt Jr. finished in 32nd. 33rd to Taylor Gray this evening, and 34th to Tyler Overstreet. Kyle Long finished in the 35th spot this evening. 36th went to Ryan Truex. Kevin Hamlin finished in 37th. 38th to Boris Cook. Martin Truex Jr. in 39th. 40th to Kyle Busch. Elliott Sadler and Tim Clausen, rounding out your full field rundown tonight from the LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series from Phoenix International Raceway, as we get set to talk to tonight's winner out of the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, Josh Berry in the 73. And Josh, I think the thing that jumps out to me is just the change of pace there. Coming through 3 and 4 in that last lap, it was an early dive to the inside, and I think we give credit to Ross in the way he adapted, but you forced him to make that move. I'm guessing that's just many years of short track experience playing into your hands and giving you an indication of what the right move needed to be.
Yeah, that was fun. That combo is just so fun on iRacing, and the draft is a big deal. And I was able to get a little bit of a gap the first couple laps, so I knew Ross would get back to my bumper, and I knew that he would try to move me in the last corner if he was there, and he was there. So I kind of had that planned out in my head a little bit. Luckily, we had enough of a gap on third place that I could kind of. I was just trying to throw him off. I think he was planning on going in there and trying to move me up the track, and I just tried to do something that he didn't expect, and basically just kind of pulled low and lifted a little bit and kind of messed up his entry. And he still could have sailed it off in there and got me, but he went down the apron, but I was able to move up and hold him off.
You just about got to your rear quarter panel and then managed to save it right at the end. And keep it interesting, but keep it clean. I think it says a lot about everybody here that you had such a good finish like that. But what about Phoenix makes this combo so fun? There are a lot of street stock leagues in iRacing, and it's not just a car for the rookies. I think that's a thing that gets lost a lot amongst a lot of people, that you can run these street stocks and you can be the best of the best, a Daytona 500 champion, a Cars Tour champion, somebody who owns a track championship, and they all keep coming back to this car and to this track in particular. It's a popular one for street stocks on the service. What makes it so great?
I don't know. Just I think everybody deep down just loves street stock racing at their local short track, and these cars on these bigger tracks is just a blast to run. So I don't know. Like I said, you have a little bit of draft. You can really slide around. You can bump and lay on each other really pretty easily without having big incidents. So for me, my goal was just to try to stay up front. When we ran these at Myrtle Beach, I tried to. I thought the tires were going to be more important, laid off and tried to make a run at the end and just didn't have enough time. So this time I just tried to stay up front, and luckily we were able to do that. But like I said, it was a lot of fun. These guys, Kevin Hamlin, TJ, they do a great job with this deal. I've been a part of a lot of leagues and stuff over the last month or two, and they're right at the top of the list with how they do it. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. Got all things automotive and iRacing back in victory lane, and hopefully we'll be on the real track pretty soon.
Shouldn't be too long before we get back to real life racing. Nashville end of the month, potentially, if things play out as planned. But Josh, congratulations on your victory tonight. Thanks so much for stopping by and talking to us, and we look forward to seeing you not too far down the road.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you guys for broadcasting it and everybody that watched. Thanks, LeafFilter, for coming on board and supporting the series. And like I said, all our partners at Junior Motorsports. So it was a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time.
Josh Berry, driver, the number 73, and winner tonight in the LeafFilter Gutter Protection Replacements iRacing Series from Phoenix International Raceway. We now turn our attention to P5. Evan Pachoco has got a hand on Josh Williams, who won the first race at Atlanta and backs it up with the top 5 tonight.
Yeah, a lot of fun out there for the driver of the number 12 machine, who we chatted with now. And Josh, congratulations. I know you want to get a good result out of this one, but we just heard from Josh Berry, your race winner, and it looked like a real fun car track combo to get these street stocks back out to the old skin of Phoenix International Raceway on iRacing. And aside from the finishing result, how much fun was it?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I wasn't very competitive tonight, so I just tried to stay in the ballpark and stay around at the end and dodge a few of the wrecks and had a lot of fun. Old Phoenix is a good time. It's pretty slick, and it's just a good place to race. And street stock's a pretty good time keeping everybody bunched together. So it was a lot of fun tonight, and congrats on Josh on the win.
It seemed like we didn't really see the field get spread out much. There was a little bit mid-pack there after the comp yellow where some drivers up front stayed out, and that kind of threw a little bit of pit strategy into this scene. But more times than not, if you were able to start up front and stay out of the chaos, things were good. How was it trying to maybe resist the temptation of putting that car in some situations that were possible but maybe not recommended?
Yeah, it was the first 7 or 8 guys were pretty much under a blanket. It was hard for the leader ever to get away, so everybody just kind of raced tight together, and you almost don't want to put yourself in a bad spot because it kind of gets you spread apart, and with the draft it's hard to make it back up, which is why you've seen the guys back in 10th or 11th kind of get gapped off of us. So you kind of try to be patient and work with people to kind of stay all draft together and all close to each other, but I just wasn't fast enough really to make any moves to get to the lead.
I hope as well that you've had a lot of time behind the wheel for these last couple of weeks, as it looks like this replacement series may be drawing to a close, Josh. But we appreciate you chatting with us here post-race. Congratulations, and hopefully, for all intents and purposes, we'll catch you at a racetrack soon.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for broadcasting everything you guys do. You do a great job.
B5 finisher tonight from Phoenix, driving the number 12 car. That's Josh Williams, the NASCAR Cup Series spotter. And we'll continue down the line as well. Justin Brent's up with our P3 finisher tonight, the 59 of Coleman Presley.
Yes, indeed. He's standing by right now, and he was a fixture inside the top 5 all night long. Coleman, how does it feel, first off, to come home with 3rd place tonight?
You know, it's real bittersweet. We ran really good at the beginning of the race and ran side by side with Josh for the lead for what felt like the entire first stage, and just played a little too conservative there on pit road and took too much fuel just in case we got some green-white checkers, and just didn't give myself track position there at the end.
Let's talk about as well some of that battling, because there was a lot of it tonight, including in some cases you were side by side for laps at a time. How was it to try and fight for position across this racetrack this evening?
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, these fixed setup races and the street stocks at these big tracks, everyone's so close together. You know, it's really up to whoever makes a mistake, and with this group, not many people do make mistakes. So it is setting yourself up to run perfect laps, and someone slipped up, you're there to make your move.
Now, of course, we mentioned it a little bit with some of the other drivers coming towards a potential close here, back to real world racing in about a week and a half or so. Your thoughts on going back to the real world track in a couple weeks?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, you know, getting back and doing what we love and what really ultimately comes natural to most of us, because this racing doesn't come natural to a lot of us. So getting back to the track to Darlington, be a really good race, and really look forward to getting there with Brad.
Real quickly, anyone you want to thank before I let you go?
Yeah. Didn't have it on the car tonight, but Celebrity Hot Dogs, my dad's restaurant, and Robert Presley for Buncombe County Commissioner. They've supported this iRacing thing, and looking forward to racing more.
Congratulations on the top 3 tonight, Coleman.
Appreciate it.
Coleman Presley coming home in P3 tonight. Back over to you, James.
We now bring the final man of our group of interviews into the booth, Ross Chastain, who came on P2. And Ross, we talked to Josh, and he said that he was trying to throw you off just a little bit with those moves there, just a lot of short track experience there, trying to keep you on your toes. And I guess coming into that last lap, did you expect anything like that? And was it hard to try and adapt as much as you did to try and get the win?
Yeah, it was. I knew Josh was gonna, be prepared, and I was already texting with Chris Rice, and he was telling me how close we were, but I didn't want to move Josh. Trying to turn over a new leaf, so pun intended for LeafFilter gutter protection. Want to do it cleanly, and with Josh Berry in a iRacing event on 4 tires and me on 2 tires, there was only one way to get around him, and that was going to be with my bumper, which would have been fine. It's a street stock race, but I really wanted to do it clean, and got there, just never could get position.
And even though it isn't necessarily the win, a really strong night for you in the LeafFilter group. Strongest, I think, in this LeafFilter gutter protection replacements iRacing series. You had a good run. Justin Haley had a good run. Chris Rice had speed at points. So what's it say about your group that you guys come together and put together strong runs tonight at Phoenix all around?
Well, I think that the strategy of two tires there at the competition caution definitely played into my my favor. I was in a wreck earlier and used my reset, took tires, filled up with fuel, and when the caution came out I think we only ran 7 or 8 laps. Ty Majeski stayed out, and I wanted to stay out, and I was just like, at least get rights, and that'll put me maybe 5th or 6th, and I think we came out right around there 4th or 5th, and that really set us up. But before that, I logged on for the 7:30 p.m. practice session that opened up for this race. That was the first time I turned a lap in the street stock here at Old Phoenix. So I know Justin has his Twitch stream going, and I think he was in his fire suit. One of those cautions I clicked over and watched on my phone for a second, just to keep up with my competition. And that was right when he took 4 tires and we took 2, so definitely he got back up close, but got us up out of the mayhem. And Chris Rice, he's never done this. He's never driven one of these things in real life or iRacing, and he bought a rig, a computer, and a screen and a wheel. After Atlanta, after the whole world got shut down for something to do, and I'm pretty disheartened with how much faster he's gotten. He's a lot closer to me and to a lot of us, and faster than us. And in some sessions, he's flat out faster than me. So, he's adapting just like we all are. But Josh is definitely the class of the field. Him and Ty, I would say, and he got it done again.
Yeah, you're going to have to keep pace with Chris Rice here if we let things go on a little bit too long. But thankfully, we're going to be seeing you guys at the real-life track here in the not-too-distant future. We look forward to seeing you then. Ross, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, and congratulations on P2 tonight.
All right, thanks, guys.
Ross Chastain comes home in the second spot. And Justin Prince, we turn to you for your final thoughts on tonight's action from Phoenix.
Exciting race, exciting action, lots of side-by-side battling. Yes, there was a lot of trouble here and there, but these drivers composed themselves well, and I really like what Chastain said in turning a new leaf, as he put it, keeping the battle for the win clean and knowing he had the 2 tires, leader had 4 tires, would have had to use the bumper to get the win, yes, but as a driver, you want to get it done just about every single time, James, as clean as you can, and that really impressed me tonight.
Evan Pashoko, to you as well. We're not terribly far away from your home. We're in the desert at least, so you might know a thing or two about this.
Yeah, it was a great show, but of course, those hot slick conditions put on a really good event tonight. My biggest takeaway from this is, we alternate back and forth with the Cup cars and the street stocks, and the Cup cars is kind of more so what you would expect in organized racing. I would love if we had street stocks at a 40-car field in organized racing at Phoenix all the time. These cars on these bigger tracks are so much fun, and tonight showed you why I think it's a great car.
It'll be a lot of fun. A lot of racing coming up in the iRacing world this week. You've got the Chili Bowl tomorrow night on Fox Sports 1, Rallycross Friday night, Saturday Night Thunder on Friday nights here on the web, and then the Pro Invitational Series from North Wilkesboro on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. on Fox Sports 1, and the Fox Sports app. But for now, we're going to take you over to Podium Esports and their coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro, the final few laps of their event tonight from the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway, coming your way momentarily. For all of us here at iRacing, for producer Cisco Scaramuza, Evan Pashoko, and Justin Prince, I am James Pike. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of the LeafFilter Gutter Protection iRacing Replacement Series. We now send it to the team at Podium Esports and their coverage from Charlotte Motor Speedway.